Within a culture where it feels as though your fall from grace could happen at any second, seeking something more solidified is a wise move. One minute, you're anointed the chosen one. The next, the legacy you thought you built has been stripped away, leaving your career in pieces. The truth is, as lucrative as the industry may be, there's one universal truth when it comes to the rap world. It giveth and it taketh away. Anyone can conjure up a hot streak, but becoming royalty requires a different set of skills entirely. When it comes to ascending to the rank of ruler in hip-hop, no territory is disputed in the same way as New York. For evidence, look no further than the West Coast, where the concept of king is handled in a much more democratic way. As seen when Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and The Game took the time to tell Kendrick that he was the king of the West Coast during a concert in Los Angeles. And while he's still the flag bearer of today, K. Dot has pledged to respond in kind when the time is right. If we see the same excitement that you see in yourself in someone else, that's the key to evolving it and giving back in terms of hip-hop, he told Billboard. Same way they did to me, I'll do to someone else. But within the city that the entire hip-hop culture emerged from, a consensus has proven harder to come by. Or perhaps it hasn't been an issue whatsoever. After all, it's telling that when you insert the search term King of New York Hip Hop into Google, you're immediately directed to the Wikipedia page of Christopher Wallace, otherwise known as the Notorious B.I.G., naturally linked with the title by everything from his tragic premature death while at the top of the game to the countless graffiti murals paying homage to their late leader. Bed-Stuy's finest has both the lyrical pedigree and cultural impact to have taken the crown to the grave with him. And that's even without considering his adoption of the Frank White moniker that, in many ways, has inadvertently transformed the King of New York term into a declaration of war as the years have trickled by. Initially portrayed in stellar fashion by Christopher Walken as a calculated drug lord, Biggie found himself identifying with this character and claiming himself to be the black equivalent on Ready to Die's The What before it became a frequent alias. Heard on tracks ranging from Hypnotize to his feature on Hov's Brooklyn's Finest, its use originated from the 1990 film entitled, you guessed it, King of New York. And since the release of the Abel Ferrara-directed flick, the iconic tagline of "Not everyone that runs a city is elected" has taken a life of its own within the hotly contested world of New York hip-hop. When it comes to the King of New York, the term's origin within hip-hop is often misattributed to Biggie, when in actual fact, Philadelphia's original gangster rapper Schoolie D was proclaiming himself to be exactly that in 1990 on a track from the accompanying film soundtrack. At the time, it merited little controversy as it didn't have the connotation that it would eventually have as advances on the throne became more frequent. Yet, when Marcy Project's Jay-Z could proclaim that "I'm the focal point like Biggie in his prime, on the low though, the city is mine," back in 97 without sparking chaos, the problem arises when an attempt is made from someone that refuses to pay homage to the past or play within the confines of hip-hop's tightly held honor code, or when the conversation arises when there's no clear victor to debate. When 50 Cent's G-Unit radio mixtape entitled The King of New York arrived in 2004, it came at a period where he undoubtedly presided over the town from his shady aftermath fortified throne. After that, no attempts on it were made, and 50, a platinum-selling Goliath at the time, didn't have to dispatch internal strife within the city limits. However, it's when that very same prized position is unguarded, the debate can kick into high gear. Initially uttered in 2013's headline Courting Control freestyle verse, alongside Jay Electronica and Big Sean, Kendrick Lamar's inflammatory claim to the crown of King of New York followed in the footstep of the Dog Pound's New York, New York. Decades on from the days in which Death Row threatened the Big Apple's dominance, he appeared to be the offspring of those crusaders who came into the 95 Source Awards with momentum on their side and left amid a sea of boos. Interpolated almost word for word from Corrupt's verse on Terrace Martin's Get Busy, Kendrick's goal wasn't to demean anyone, but reassert hip-hop's competitive spirit and give it a jolt of adrenaline. Or, as outlined in high-octane fashion by Corrupt during an interview with Vlad TV, when placed among the other references to a Muslim on pork or the Pope, it means I'm the worst. We don't want your city, your town, we are the West Coast. Why would we want to be where you are? We like our streets. We don't have a problem with y'all, cuz. Although it was used as a way to portray devilment rather than disrespect, this alternate reading has largely fallen on deaf ears among the East Coast's fiercest defenders, dredging old territorial battle lines back to the surface. Twisting the hip-hop world's arm into actively mounting up and protecting their market share, the line had such an impact that it actually caused rifts and dissensions in New York's ranks as Styles P challenged Joe Budden's perception. First and foremost, I have never acknowledged any kings but Biggie, New York or not New York. Second of all, don't play me. Whether he meant it or not, Kendrick sent ripples of unease through a city that had let the notion of appointing a commander-in-chief fall by the wayside for many years, leaving them vulnerable, rattled, and, as we saw from responses from Papoose, J.R. Ryder, and Joel Ortiz, paranoid. But beyond that, Kendrick also proved that the title has ebbs and flows of relevancy. As Kendrick's offhand bar showed, the debate only kicks into high gear when someone of cultural and commercial significance ultimately throws the gauntlet down. Without that incentive, it can lay dormant for years at a time. Case in point, MCs ranging from Mobb Deep to Fat Joe and Jadakiss all made lyrical allusions to acting as the city's crown jewel without even the faintest hint of controversy as, despite their undeniable skills, they'd earned enough respect and were too far out of the mainstream contention at the time for it to really matter. But once more polarizing or unseasoned artists deem themselves worthy of the title, the challengers begin to come out of the woodwork in hopes of adding that newly lusted after crown to their trophy case. As Highbridge MC Don Q thoughtfully put it, it's just for attention. I don't really care. You could say it first like how Lil Wayne came out with the best rapper and then everyone said he was the best rapper alive. Nobody said it until he said it. Just as Jay-Z had once prodded at his local contemporaries and claimed that New York been soft since Snoop came and crashed the buildings on Money Cash Hoes, it takes a certain caliber of artist to put the conversation back on the docket. Whether that means an immensely skillful MC at the peak of his powers, such as a Kendrick, or one that is simply a lightning rod for controversy and has made a career out of rubbing hip-hop sensibilities the wrong way. Since he first clambered up on the shoulders of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods and used them as a springboard to social media notoriety, Takashi 6ix9ine has made the title of King of New York a hot-button issue in a way that it hasn't been since the buzz around Kendrick's boastful provocation simmered down. Initially adopting the distinction back in March of 2018, the boombastic trolling MC found himself facing no shortage of animosity in the process. This the bum y'all let call himself the King of New York, proclaimed the game in response. Frank White only King of New York. An audacious claim for an artist without so much of an album to his name, it prompted a normally insular Joey Badass to vaguely throw his hat in the ring with some boastful claims before Cardi B waded in, citing her commercial power as credentials on Lil Yachty's Who Want the Smoke. From morphing into a temporary staple of everyday struggle, to 50 Cent giving 6ix9ine his blessings to run with it, Takashi, love him or hate him, highlighted that the crown was there for the taking within a New York without a governing direction. Initially growing discontented with its limitations, Takashi opted to relinquish it, proclaiming, "Boogie, Don Q, 50, all y'all keep that King of New York. I already had that. Y'all can have that. I'm the King of Europe, y'all." After he evaded 45 years worth of hard time by selling his former 9 Trey associates down the river and snitching in the most high-profile manner possible, its status as a cardinal sin within the genre led many to believe that he'd relent when he regained his freedom. Instead, Takashi's re-entry into society has thrown gasoline on the flames that he'd once been pettering out, as a result, proving just how vital he is to the modern hip-hop discourse. In spite of everything that emerged, 50 wouldn't walk back his unreserved cosign of Takashi capturing the crown. Nah, when you got young artists coming up, if you feel like you the King of New York and you got hit records playing, I'm like, yeah, He informed Big Boy on Fuse in October of last year, "I think Jacquees should say he's the king of R&B. If that's the way you feel, it may allow his confidence to get to the place where he can continue to create and build more momentum. That's why." Although it may aggrieve studious hip-hop heads 50's viewpoint, it speaks to where the phrase gains traction, whereas talented but ultimately outlying MCs, such as R.A. the Rugged Man, can say it without anyone batting an eyelid. Where Nas could have even been viewed as the king of New York back in '94, as he astounded audiences with Illmatic, 6ix9ine moved the goalpost and equated clout as a determining factor to take the crown over artistic ability. However, despite the upside that having a king brings, it can be a poisonous chalice. Leading the charge for a new subgenre that was uninherently linked to a borough, the late Pop Smoke had more of a robust stake to the throne in terms of lyrical ability, his commanding presence, and the fact that he'd uplifted the city with his drill-oriented style. After igniting the world with Welcome to the Party and picking up the ball where Bobby Shmurda had to drop due to jail time, his turn on the authoritative Christopher Walken saw him proclaim that, "She know I'm the king of New York." And at that point, no one felt the need to combat him. In the same vein, A Boogie staked his claim as King of My City on the album that arrived hot on the heels of him finally rising to Billboard #1 status. The response? There was none beyond an acknowledgement that he was making moves. Yet in the wake of Takashi's reemergence, New York rappers have once again found themselves compelled to act. "Only thing I know is I'm shutting the streets down from now on," proclaimed the youthful Lil TJ. "I'm the king of New York. All that other nana stuff and snitch rainbow hair going on in my city is a dub. The real gon' understand." Asserting that he wouldn't back down even without the gangster facade that came with his previous gang ties, Takashi took Lil TJ to task during his record-breaking Instagram Live, claiming, "For the king of New York, let's cut that out. Lil boy, sit down. I ain't beefing with anyone from New York if you don't got this watch. If you don't got this watch right here, you're a little boy to me. I'll kiss you on your forehead." Here, we see where the value of the title comes for artists such as 6ix9ine, where other MCs have aspired to it but wouldn't dare to make that claim out of respect for their forefathers. Takashi knows that handling something that's so volatile will provide him with a steady stream of beef that's propelled his career forward since the early days. Beef equals clicks. Beef equals views. And for Takashi, beef keeps his music on top out of intrigue, even where enjoyment doesn't factor in. To be a king and not a pretender to the throne, you need to be respected by your peers and idolized by the up-and-comers that have hopes of ascending to that level. On top of that, you need to be capable of holding your own within the pressure cooker heat of battle. In reality, Takashi 6ix9ine has mastered his own domain, but the realm in which he excels is ultimately adjacent from a world where hip-hop still adheres to the code of ethics and skill set that's been present ever since it began. He's not interested in that, and it's not interested in him. So, while 6ix9ine may be acting as New York's leading export in this very moment in history, in all likelihood, he won't have the attributes to sustain the necessary respect and intergenerational appeal that's needed to be viewed as one of the greats to emerge from hip-hop's birthplace. And as Dave East acknowledges, very MCs ever will. "Keep me out of that. I ain't no king of New York," he told No Jumper. "You know, Jay-Z and Nas still out here breathing, so there's nobody on earth that can say that's from New York with them alive. Jadakiss is still out here breathing. Styles P is still out here breathing. DMX is still, there's a lot of people that's still kicking and moving." This has been a HipHopMadness original. Make sure to stay tuned and stay up to date with everything we got going on by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. Oh, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HipHopMadness and join the movement.